Again, my name is Dave Suffolk. I'm located in the U.S. and kind of head up our solution architects group here in the U.S. with some other people as well. So been in the industry for an embarrassingly large number of years. I've been doing EDI and B2B for over 30 years. So I have seen quite a few changes along the way, not only in technology, but also in terms of the implementation. So we're seeing considerably more people putting their B2B in the cloud these days. And that's why we thought it would be appropriate to talk about what we have seen in terms of the evolution from traditional EDI, where I started, to where we are today with some of the newer technologies, and especially the ability to leverage those in the cloud. So those are what I'm going to be focusing on during today. But the thing that I wanted to start out with is, the only constant in life is change. Going from the old-fashioned typewriters to mainframe computers to servers to laptops that even our watches these days, our wristwatches, actually have more technologically powerful computing capabilities than the astronauts had when they landed on the moon. So it is amazing what the technology can do, and how we actually can leverage that so that we can do business better and do our jobs better, and free ourselves up for maybe some the things that are important to running the business in terms of actual business applications instead of just pure EDI and B2B. The whole idea of being able to free up time to do other tasks as well. I'm sure we're all tasked with that. So that this is just part of that evolution as well. So what we're going to be covering is the evolution, all those different intermediate steps that we've seen, what modern B2B looks like, and the idea that you can have one platform for all these different requirements. So that's something to keep in mind as I go through all of these bullet points and such. Is it used to be that you'd have to have a different platform for B2B versus file transfer versus APIs and such. The problem there is trying to maintain all the setups separately, trying to maintain the visibility across all of those. Where do I go to find out what happened with this particular business transaction? Really the way to look at it is, wouldn't it be nice if, and this is possible, to have one platform for all these different types of integrations. So first, the evolution. And this is something that everybody that's on this call is, probably does recognize. Looking at classical EDI/B2B, transactions between businesses, transactions within a business, even if you've got multiple divisions or you've got multiple locations, for example. I see people using EDI transactions to go between themselves in their distribution centers, for example, or from between their headquarters in multiple different divisions. It's like you've got this tool out there that will enable you to transform the data from one format to another and communicate it across applications as well as across businesses. So, B2B and EDI really has taken on a larger life. And one of the things that I like to talk about here is that, people are talking, with these evolutions to newer technologies, do I ever see EDI going away? And the answer is no. I mean, EDI is still growing. If you take a look at vans and their processing quantities, they're still increasing. In fact, they're increasing still exponentially. So I really don't see EDI transactions going away. And this will kind of give you an idea how long I've been around as well. There are still tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands, of COBOL programs out there. When newer programming languages came out, people were like, oh, COBOL's going to go away. No, it's not. It still runs a lot of critical business processes. Same thing with EDI and B2B. It's not going to be going away, and it still runs critical business processes. So the adoption and the use of EDI is still growing. So I don't really see it going away anytime soon. But it does cover your classical business activities. And people kind of start out with, orders. I want to be able to receive my orders electronically in order to, improve the process in terms of reducing errors, that sort of thing, taking the human intervention away if and when possible. So orders is kind of where everything tends to start. And thankfully, a lot of companies have gone well beyond that. The idea of, I don't want to just do my orders, I want to do, order changes. It used to be I'd do my orders via EDI, and order changes, call me or send me an email and I'll make the changes in this system. It really does make more sense to take an entire value chain and automate it as much as possible. Again, to take the human intervention away so that it doesn't slow things down, as well as human beings are prone to human error, taking those errors out of the process when available. So, the entire, like if you look at the bottom right, going, starting out at the price catalog, hey, here are the items that you can currently, order from me, including prices. We see this quite a bit in retail and grocery, for example. Those things, they're commodities. They change pretty rapidly. And if I send you an order and expecting I'm going to pay $5 for this, and you send me an invoice and it's for $7.50, that's going to create issues with my automated processes. I'm not going to send out a payment for something that disagrees with what I thought I was ordering. So the idea of automating that process as well to make sure that when you're sending an order, you've got the current pricing that's available to you. Another thing that I see is people, an item used to be available to you to order, but it's no longer available. I've maybe updated it with a new product with a new product and pricing code. Maybe it's something that I've said, no, this is only going to be available on commercial sales now instead of customer sales. So I want to make sure that you get the most accurate information available for when you're placing your orders. So that catalog, that product and price catalog, is really a very important piece of this, and a piece that a lot of people tend to overlook, for lack of a better term. And that ends up with problems down the road when you get an invoice and it doesn't match what you thought it was going to be. Maybe the items were correct, but the prices aren't. Order changes, responses, so you know what you should expect to receive, especially for retail and automotive, when you've got response times that you expect in terms of, I sent this order here, this is when I need it. I expect a response back so I know when I can receive it, so I can update my my DCs so they know when it's going to be received. I see that a lot in the building products industry as well, especially these times where there's a lot of building going on. Unfortunately, some of it's due to the hurricane that just came through, but the availability and knowledge of when I'm going to be receiving that item that I ordered is getting more and more critically important. We saw that with COVID as well, with the supply chain issues that the people were experiencing. It's very important to understand that order response, when I'm going to get it, and actually then the shipment notifications. So it's, that, hey, yeah, it actually did ship, and this is when you can expect to receive it. And then the receiving advice as well. It's like, okay, yes, I received it, but I ordered 100 and you sent me 100, but 3 of them were damaged, so I'm only going to pay for 97. And you have to deal with the carrier for that other. It actually involves more and more business partners than it used to as part of this automation. So it's the idea of better information faster. And part of the issue is if you can't provide that to them, they may look to another supplier as to, yeah, they can support my needs for my supply chain requirements. So it really is a matter of increasing not just your transaction volume, not just increasing the types of information you can provide, but it's also potentially a competitive advantage or disadvantage whether or not you can support these types of business transactions. So it really does cover the entire value chain. I tend to use this term supply chain, but it's really the whole value chain of what is it that you provide to me and what value is it to me. And that's ever increasing as well. You EDI or die. Well, you got to do these business processes, or you're going to lose some of your competitive advantage and some of your clients potentially. So EDI was really looked at it initially, including by me, as a technical concept, and it's really more a business concept rather than just it's leveraging technology to enable you to do business the way that you and your strategic partners want to and need to do business. So classic EDI, this is what we tended to look at in the past, going from your internal applications through whatever format it required, through a platform such as Biz to do the transformation to the requirements of the business partner, or vice versa. It tended to be run on premise. People, the cloud didn't even exist when I started doing EDI. And when the cloud came out as a possibility, people were looking at saying, well, do I want to use that? Do I lose control? No, you don't. Do I lose security? No, you actually probably have better security. So the old way of doing things between you and your business partners, whether they just be partner, customers, suppliers, or warehouses or shippers, this was kind of a limited view of the ability to exchange information electronically. And it's a limited view of the value that you can bring to the business process. So these are all kind of the traditional, I'm doing AS2, I'm using a VAN, I'm doing ANSI or EDIFACT. I've got maybe an industry-specific subset for the partners that I'm exchanging with. This is kind of a limited view of the way things, quote unquote, used to be. Well, the problem with that is there were limitations. There were only specific formats and protocols, so you generally had to comply to their requirement, or if you couldn't do AS2, for example, fine, I'll use a VAN, an electronic mailbox, and I'll let them do the AS2 communications. Well, it was basically straightforward processes. I looked at it as transaction-based rather than business-based. So it was just doing the order and doing the shipment notification. And I've already kind of talked about how that's just a piece of the puzzle. You really need to look at the more complete business process rather than just a transaction-based process. The idea of that on-premise solution, it was just the way people did things in the past, and I'm a subscriber to that initially. That we did everything on premise. We actually tried to write our own translator initially, and then we realized, boy, that's a fool's game. It's just things change too fast, and we didn't want to be in the business of maintaining that software that we ran internally. It makes more sense to utilize a vendor that actually it's their business, it's their job to do this and to maintain it and make sure it's current. It was also a very limited scope. As I mentioned, it tended to be order-based. It tended not to look at other business processes, which we'll talk about in just a little bit. And it was very static. It was not very flexible at all. It was, again, kind of transaction-based to support specific transactions. And there really wasn't much flexibility other than how do I want to interpret the standard, which I tend to term a guideline. The standard is kind of all things to all people. And then you had these industry subsets that were specific to an industry, because I don't need those 200 transaction sets that ANSI supports. I only need some small subset of it. So industry groups kind of got together and said, here's what our implementation of that's going to look like. You don't need all those different transaction set purpose codes if I'm not shipping metric tons of things, for example. So they kind of made it a little bit more specific to what really related to their way of doing business. So there was some limited flexibility in terms of utilization of the standard, but not nearly kind of flexibility that we see today. So we started out looking at, just the transactions. And like I said, we're looking at new practices, new technologies, and most importantly, new strategies. EDI used to be something that you did as reactive. It wasn't really a business strategy. And that was just very limiting in terms of getting any return on your investment. It was enabling you, but it wasn't something that people were using strategically to run their business. And we've really seen that change quite a bit from back when we were just doing quote unquote traditional EDI. We're using FTP communications, which has its own limitations. I mean, FTP is free, but you don't get the communications acknowledgments. You don't know what happened with it. You don't know if something dropped unless your system monitored for that and said, hey, the packets weren't complete. So there, it also wasn't very secure. So then they came out with FTPS. They came out with other protocols, X400. Tradecoms is a subset of the standards. So this was used for quite a while, as you see on the timeline there. This probably ran for a good solid 20 years. But people started to see some of the limitations, and they said, we really need to be able to do a bit more than that. We need to be able to leverage the internet. I remember the first time I was at a trade conference and somebody came up to me and they said, well, are you guys supporting the internet? And I knew what the internet was, but I was like, well, why would we want to support the internet when we can do direct communications via all these other protocols? That really kind of opened my eyes as to, there are some possibilities for using the internet for this communications. And as the internet grew and the capabilities and the security of the internet grew, HTTP, HTTPS came up, SFTP came up. These are all things that we're kind of evolved out of need and saying there are better ways of doing things, more efficient, more effective ways of doing things. So it gives you the interoperability. It gives you scalability that you didn't have before. So and again, when people think of the internet, you tend to think initially of, is it secure? Well, it actually does enhance your security because it gives you the ability to encrypt the transmission, making sure that the data is private going from place to place. It really, in looking at it from the cloud perspective, it does give you that seamless interaction between your business partners where you don't have to worry about, how am I going to get the information there? It gives a very, very flexible infrastructure when you're leveraging the cloud. It's really an alternative, gives you the more agility as well, especially if you're looking at some of the cloud providers where I don't have to worry about maintaining a structure internally on my own servers. I can rent that from cloud providers and they can scale up as necessary where I don't have a capital expenditure to support these growing volumes. Or maybe I look at that quite frankly as seasonal, especially if I'm normally doing 100,000 transactions a month, and boom, all of a sudden during Christmas season or during Halloween season or whatever, that doubles or triples. I don't want to have to plan for that year round when I only need it for a short period of time. So the cloud gives you that flexibility for scaling up when you need it, but not all the time. So that's where we got to the cloud. Gives you some additional protocols, gives you some additional functions in terms of the formats and such that you're sending across. This is also something that's very, very handy if you have to deal with customs. The thing about customs is you've got to be certified with the various customs agencies in order to exchange information with them. Whereas if you're using a cloud provider saying, hey, here's my invoice, you deal with the customs agencies, or here's my shipment information, you deal with the customs agencies. The cloud gives you more flexibility to to do things that are outside of your normal knowledge base, and it kind of gives you the ability to not be hampered by these additional regulations and such. Cloud providers can do that for you, and it saves you a lot of time, but it also saves you from having to know and support all these additional certificate. And oh, by the way, they're not static either. They keep changing as well. Everybody these days talks about APIs. There's all different types of methods of communicating. Some of the large ERP providers, such as SAP, support a wide variety of API calls into and out of their applications. It's faster, absolutely, it's faster. But the whole idea there again is, can I do that on premises? Sure. Can I do that via cloud? Absolutely. And the ability to really support the response times that you need are not hampered by a cloud implementation. You know, there's going to be a slight amount of latency added because you're adding another step in between, but it really doesn't. The modern technologies are such that you're going to get the kind of response time that you require, even if you're going through a cloud to do API support. So the whole idea there, and you know, it could be direct. Again, it could be maybe through an e-invoicing application to a government, you know, using different protocols that they require. Again, it gives you some of the flexibility that you don't need to understand or leverage all of the new technologies. You can continue doing the business the way that you did and let the cloud provider help you do those interfaces to things like customs and the governments for e-invoicing, for example. So it really kind of opens up more of the world to you in terms of possibilities. And then AI. Everybody's talking about AI these days. The baby, you know, a lot of different ways of doing AI assist. One of the ways that SEEBURGER is doing specifically is doing assist in creating map code, so that I don't have to know all of the mapping commands. I don't have to know which ones are more efficient than others. By leveraging AI within our mapper, it assists you, and we've heard people having 60% improvements in their productivity in generating maps using our AI assist in the mapper. So that's just through today, and you see on the timeline, again, the only constant in life is change. This is going to continue to grow. I don't know what's coming next after AI, but I guarantee you there is going to be something coming up next. And kind of stay tuned. It's going to be a wild ride. So the whole idea, again, is using one platform to do all these types of integrations rather than having multiple platforms. It's kind of the idea of best of breed in one. And if you think about, especially if you're traveling internationally and you're looking to buy, whether it be souvenirs or clothes or food or whatever, these ideas of like the local bazaars that have anything and everything in one place, that's the same idea behind this integration platform. It's really good to be able to do that all in one place. I don't want to call it a one-stop shop, but it's really the idea of taking a technology platform and future-proofing it so that, hey, now I need to start doing managed file transfer. Hey, I need to start doing APIs. Instead of having to grow out and do other platforms and have multiple places where you manage your data and multiple places where you're seeing what's there, have a single platform that does it all for you. And that's why I call it future-proofing. It's, you know, you don't know what those needs are today, just like I talked about in the previous slide. I don't know what the new technologies are coming down the pike, but that's where we keep track of those technology trends and make sure that they're available in the product so that you don't have to leverage multiple platforms. Leverage one platform and just add the capabilities you need within that. And I think the biggest thing there, I mean, people talk about, you know, setups, maintaining setups in one place. Yeah, that's important, but to me, the visibility, when things go bump in the night, where can I find out what happened? And having that single visibility tool to do that is just invaluable. So when we look at modern B2B, instead of the old simple business view, you know, and you're going to see a lot of expansion here. You know, what does it look like now? You know, I've got multiple internal applications that maybe I need to communicate between them. I've got multiple different types of business partners. I got suppliers, I've got customers, I've got banks, I've got customs agencies. It's amazing the explosion that we've seen in people that not just interested, but demanding better information and faster information. If you're integrating through Amazon, for example, and using their marketplaces, you better be able to integrate into that marketplace, because that's where maybe a large percentage, depending on the type of retailer maybe you are, that's maybe where a large percentage of your orders are coming from these days. So it is amazing the growth that we've seen in this, and the expansion, not just in types of documents, and not just in terms of the technology, but in terms of the people that are not just interested in exchanging information this way, but are mandating it. You've got to be able to do it this way, or there are plenty of people out there who can. So the whole idea there, if you look in the center on the Biz platform, it can still be on premise, obviously, but it can be in any cloud. If you want to run it in our cloud, you want to run it in your cloud, you want to run it in a hyperscaler, we have the ability to do that wherever it is that you want it to do, or a hybrid. Maybe you're doing some applications on premises still, because that's where the technology makes sense for you, but there are others where you want to migrate to the cloud. So it really is any way that you need it, we can kind of adjust to, we can adapt to. It's really the idea of moving from just the traditional transaction-based. Now I'm supporting a value chain, a business chain, and making sure that we can deliver those needs that you've got. Excuse me. So different types of scenarios, EDI via APIs. You know, we've got many people doing EDI via APIs today. Large data, sensitive data, different types of MFTs and managed file transfer scenarios. You know, again, it can be internally or it can be externally. It can be with non-traditional partners. We're seeing a lot of this with marketing agencies, for example. So, you know, so I'm not sending orders or receiving orders, but I'm doing, you know, product information, and I'm doing ads and that sort of thing with my marketing agencies. Not just consuming APIs, but managing APIs that I publish, that I want to be able to go out there and say, hey, yeah, if you want to access my inventory information, call my API, and I want to control who has access to that. So there's some security around that, and there's some governance around that. You know, I've got one client that opened up APIs to, unfortunately, their sales reps, and they were going out and finding out the status by API to their Salesforce application, and they were doing these things multiple times a day, when it's like, guys, nothing's changed in the last 24 hours. So they want to be able to scale that back, and there's a word for it, I can't think of it now, but I want to, you know, control the amount of access that somebody has. I also want to be able to manage and make sure that I'm not getting denial of service attacks. Somebody's calling in via a published API that they got, and that they're really not intending to order anything or to check anything. They're just trying to bring my system to its knees. So how do I manage all of that traffic coming in, and make sure that I can control via policies and rules? So any kind of digital channel, any kind of process, any kind of trading partner, that endpoint might be a government. When you look at e-invoicing, for example, it might be government when you're looking at customs, for example. So the whole idea is, you know, I want to be able to control it. I want to be able to enable it when I want to enable it. And I want to make sure that I'm out there with all the current technologies, so that I'm doing everything I need to do for my business partners as well as my internal applications. So again, the whole idea is, again, one platform, as I'd mentioned. When you're taking a look at all the things that are coming up, you know, it's got to be reliable. It's got to be 24/7 by 365. It's got to be flexible for all the different types of transactions and business requirements. I tend to look at this as business needs that I apply technology to support. So I got to have that flexibility in my platform to support these changing business requirements. And as I mentioned before, the future requirements. We don't know what's coming down the pipe, but I will tell you that SEEBURGER makes sure that we are, you know, we have our ear to the ground, not just from industry groups, but also from our clients. What is it that you see coming up? That's why we have different groups that we get together to say, hey, what are you hearing out on the street? And are these things that you think that you're going to be needing? And if so, what kind of a time frame? And how can we work together to deliver that the way that you need it? And again, the cost efficiency. You don't want to build it in-house, and you don't want to have multiple different platforms that you're paying maintenance on. We've actually seen people where in order to reduce maintenance on multiple platforms, they can actually pay for the purchase of our platform just by reducing all their maintenance on these disparate platforms. So it really does give you a lot more efficiency, especially in terms of cost. So SEEBURGER Cloud can be in the middle of all of these, whether, it doesn't matter what your back end is. And again, it's both directions. It can be an SAP S/4HANA and with all of its technical requirements. It can be your warehouse management system. It can be your healthcare system. It can be your expense system. We're seeing many, many more people, including us internally, integrating with Concur, for example. So, and again, on the right-hand side, doesn't matter what kind of application. It can be IoT, Industry 4.0. It can be just application APIs. It can be regular B2B business documents. In our cloud, we can support, and that's the nice thing about using Biz is our foundational platform for this. It is what we use for all of our cloud operations as well. So anything that you can do on-premise with Biz, we can do in our cloud with Biz. And actually, there's a lot of things we can do in our cloud that you probably can't or don't want to do internally, such as e-invoicing, with some of the government requirements, some of the certifications, and some of the archiving requirements. Turn that over to us through our cloud operation, and we can do that. I mean, it's what we do. It's all we do. You can focus on your business, whether it be retail or automotive or manufacturing or whatever. Focus on doing your business better and using us, leveraging us to enable all these other technologies and such that will help you do your business better. So how we can help you future-proof? What is your strategy? You got to look at, what's the way that you want to do business? What makes sense for your business? Ask yourself, do you have full visibility to all those integration requirements? And if so, is it in one place, or do you have to which one do I log into for this? And somebody's screaming at me because they didn't get their shipment. Okay, well, where did that occur? Did it occur in my EDI? Did it occur as an API, or did it occur in the cloud? Again, have one place where you can get the visibility for all that. Team responsibilities, I look at this as much as training on new technologies as anything. It's like, how do you keep up with all those technologies? When APIs first came out, people were like, I have no idea how in the world to support this. So leverage SEEBURGER or leverage your provider, hopefully SEEBURGER, to take advantage of those capabilities and make them easy for you to use. And again, like I said, future-proof your applications so that all we have to do is maybe add a module to it. Utilizing APIs today. Maybe you are, maybe you aren't. Even if you are, that's probably going to continue to grow in terms of types of transactions and types of business processes you need to support. And this one, I think, is one of the most critical ones. Are you spending a lot of man hours keeping up with the technology and keeping up with the business needs in terms of interacting with these external partners, as opposed to figuring out ways that you can do business better? How can you reduce your internal operational costs? How can you maybe reduce your inventory turns? I'm sorry, increase your inventory turns, reduce the amount of inventory you have to hold on hand. Just by having that information better that you can share internally and faster. So, the whole idea of don't worry about the technology. We can manage that for you. Look at how you can do business better. I was visiting, and this was at least 10 years ago, somebody that was looking at a new platform, and I was showing them all the ways that they could be more efficient. And pointed out from the window from the conference room, and he says, yeah, that's Betty over there. He says, what you're telling me is I don't need Betty anymore because your system can do it for me. And I said, no, that's not the idea. Put Betty on things that are helping you do business better in terms of, because Betty's got 25 years of knowledge of how you run your business. There are things that she can do more effectively than going out there and building maps and adding new partners. Maybe we can help you onboard partners more effectively so that she doesn't have to spend all her time trying to schedule testing and such with people. Find things that you can leverage her knowledge for that give you a better return. So that's the whole idea here. Look at how you can improve your operations as opposed to having to leverage all these new technologies yourselves. Turn it over to us and let us do it for you. Our cloud services group, we've been doing cloud for over a decade. So we got it down pretty well by now. Leverage that knowledge that we've got, and maybe we can do it better, faster, quicker, more efficiently than you can do it internally. So definitely look at leveraging us for those types of things as well. So that's all I've got to present. I've run over a little bit over my expected time, but I'd like to open it up for any questions that you might have.
Yeah, there are a few in the chat. So the most current trend that was mentioned in the evolution of B2B was AI. Have you seen a lot of adoption of AI at your clients?
Interesting question, because just because it's there doesn't mean people are using it yet. We aren't seeing a lot of AI yet. It is a relatively new technology, and a lot of clients have indicated that they will likely wait until they see a need, for example, developing new maps rather than updating existing maps. AI could be used for both, but I think they're taking it a little bit cautiously, which is probably a good idea, and saying, rather than messing with something that I've already got that's working well, let me play with this on something new that's not in production yet. And I'd rather do it on something new than modifying existing. So do we see it? Yeah, a lot of people are kind of waiting for an actual need, as opposed to, hey, it's a cool new tool, I want to play with it. So by the way, it is a cool new tool. It really does, it leverages some knowledge that you don't necessarily have already. I want to know how to anonymize my data. I want to know how to do this calculation better. I maybe have, in terms of an existing map, I've got this calculation in there. Hey, can I make this more efficient? And it'll come back with a new maybe a way of doing that within the map. So not a lot, but I see a lot of interest in it, but I haven't seen as many people playing with it yet in production. I think they're testing it, but I don't see as much yet. But again, it's still a new technology, and again, people are trying to keep the lights on and do the stuff they have to do to run the business. So I see AI leveraging, maybe doing things better, but not as much yet.
Okay, and since everybody's talking about APIs, will there be a move towards APIs when it comes to data interchange?
Honestly, I think that it's unlikely that all transaction types are going to be moved to APIs. Some lend themselves better for the need for immediate feedback. I was mentioning, when I'm doing an order, the traditional, I download my catalog once a day sort of thing. So do I want to go out there and immediately check on a catalog? If it's a commodity and it's changing constantly, yeah, maybe I'm going to do it for that. But for invoicing that I'm doing right now, batch once a day, no, I really don't see that sort of thing leveraging APIs as much. So you really have to look at what is the business need for the turnaround and the speed of getting that information or sending that information. Maybe I'm going to do an API to send out all my critical orders. It's an urgent one. I've got a piece of equipment on the shop floor that broke down. I need to go out there immediately and see what the availability of it is, and I need to get my order in now because, you know, for automotive, for example, it can be $1 million a minute for a system being down. So I need that information on maybe it's product availability or when's that shipment going to get here for my just-in-time, just-in-sequence. So there are some transactions that require that immediate response. There are other transactions that really don't. So I don't see everything going to API, but I do see it more and more widely utilized in the industries.
And what are the newest industries that you are seeing adopting B2B?
Yeah, interesting. As I kind of mentioned earlier, EDI, B2B is not going away. One of the things that I'm seeing in general is healthcare seems to be catching up in the adoption of EDI. I think part of that's due to government regulations. That information has to be put in electronic form, and they want copies of things. E-invoicing is another where the governments are saying, hey, I want a copy of your invoices so I know that I'm getting the proper amount of tax out of you, that sort of thing. But so healthcare is one, government interaction is another. But one of the ones that I'm seeing more and more these days is HR, human relations. The ability to sign up for healthcare insurance, for example, putting in claims. The insurance providers are wanting that electronically. Even, you know, HR from an HR standpoint of expense reports that I mentioned before, doing the APIs with Concur, speeding up that whole process. And again, it's part of that is float. You know, I want to make sure that I have timely reporting on expenses. I want to make sure I get timely requests to pay out those expenses, and I want to be able to control exactly when that money is released, as opposed to, hey, there's a check in the mail and it may get there 2 or 3 days, and then I don't know when you're going to pull it from the bank. I know exactly when I've taken it from my account through the system and send it to your bank, and I know it's within 24 hours they're going to move the funds. I have better control of my float from a financial standpoint as well. So everybody kind of wins. The employee knows exactly when the money goes in. There's no delay. They don't have to worry about the check getting lost in the mail. So HR is one of the ones that I'm seeing a lot more of these days.
Okay, thank you so much, Dave, and thank you everyone for joining us today. I hope you enjoyed the insights. As I've mentioned earlier, we'll do the recording as well as the presentation slide deck shortly via email. Please visit our website to learn more about the evolution from EDI to modern B2B. We've recently published a blog about this as well. And yeah, there are also 4 other webcasts within this series that you can register for. We'll be back in 2 weeks' time to tell you more about our iPath. And if you have any other comments or questions that you have not been able to ask today, you can of course contact us at any time or visit us in our community. When we now close this webcast, you will be led to a website asking you to answer a few quick questions on how we did today, and we'd very much appreciate your feedback. So thank you once again, and I hope to welcome you again soon.